Thursday nights. Coming to you live, all the way from over here. Morf Radio. Morf Radio.
Starting now.
Okay,
Dude, you
there we
remember
go.
the early days when you had what was the name of that song that we used to play on the first show? Something from Rocket League or
Silver
some
Scrapes?
esports. Silver
Scrapes. Yeah. It was
by Danny McCarthy.
Yeah, that one. That was the banger.
Solar eclipses.
Yeah, right here. Here we go. Oh fuck.
Well, he biced it.
There it is. Yeah, this one. Oh damn.
This is the banger.
Throwback right here. I haven't heard this thing in like 6 months. Now that I'm sufficiently deaf.
Yeah. Okay, that's enough of that. That way we don't get muted for the whole thing. So, okay. Welcome to. That was all Vice, guys. Blame him. Welcome to Morf Radio. We are back after. I don't remember the last time we did this. Somebody was getting rolled. I think it was Oasis, maybe.
It was about a month ago, I think.
Yeah. So that was, I think, right around when Oasis started getting hit. So we're back. It's been a interesting month or so. From that, the Clock Blackwater war against Oasis and Mr. Inc. ended after 7 days, right? And then Clock immediately turned around and hit Rose. And then that war lasted 14 days, maybe, right? Was that long? I think 10 to 14 days in that range.
The war, yeah. The Oasis was 8 days. The other one was like 14.
Okay,
14.
8 days and 14 days. Sorry, Pimpico. And then after that war was ended, everything kind of calmed down for a little while, and then TFP out of nowhere, Velny left TFP, and then TFP yeeted Oasis. Oasis died. Immortals went to Hollywood. So there's a couple things that we can talk about. So let's start with the first thing that we haven't really covered. We got a Clock rep. We got a Rose rep. Let's talk about the war. Deca, how's it going, man?
Very good. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing well. I guess I should probably just introduce my panel here real quick, actually, and then we'll talk about the war. We have, first of all, Deca. Deca is one of the 3 co-leaders, right, of Cataclysm?
Yeah, 3 co-leaders, not tri-leaders.
Okay.
Yes.
We have Dr. James Wilson, who is repping Hollywood, so that's fun, considering the last time James was on the show, he was yelling at Hollywood. James, how you doing, man?
Hi, it's going great. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing great, man. I'm about to watch some basketball. Host a radio show. Then we have Mr. Snow Miser, aka George. George is currently the FA at the Commonwealth, correct?
Yep.
Okay.
Which there's a lot to talk about there too, because you have the remnants from Oasis, which are all tying in. So that's something to talk about, like UPN.
We'll talk about that later too. We have Mr. Gaius Julius Caesar, or some people know him as Tarok, VP of Foreign Affairs at the Syndicate, correct?
Yeah, it's nice to be on here and not have to start every sentence without saying, I'm not a member of Gov. I can actually relax for a change.
There you go. And then making, I'm pretty sure, his first ever Morf Radio appearance, we have Lucy. our lovely Rose leader. Lucy, how you doing? I know it's really late for you.
Kinda 3 a.m. in the middle of the night. Always fun.
Well, we appreciate your commitment to be here.
Dedication.
Very dedicated.
Tarek, what time is it for you,
Yeah.
Tarek?
I live in Boston, so it's 9 p.m. 9:09.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not nearly bad. Lucy is the most dedicated person here today. We have
Glad to be here.
Vice back in his co-host role. He's back. The Morf
Cool.
Radio family has gotten back together after a brutal divorce and separation. So,
And yeah, I'm the actual Rose leader. Lucy is just my puppet vassal that I've installed.
yeah, okay. And then in his favorite role, we have Kev, the Shadow Johnson's leader, and the head of TFP.
The daimyo of the fighting pacifists. Again, the fighting pacifists, and the grandfather of the Johnsons. Pleasure to be here, Morph. And I'm also excited for the future of Morph Radio, and I'm really happy that you're bringing this back to a weekly show. Thank you.
Oh, that was news to me. Okay. We're back, though. So now we'll return to Decca. Decca,
Yes.
please take us through the clock rationale for hitting Rose immediately after piecing out of your war with Oasis Mystery Inc. Just what was going on in there? Why'd you do it? Etc.
Yeah, so thank you for letting me speak, by the way. The initial thought was that Cataclysm specifically, along with Clock as a whole, we had a good chunk of peace behind us, and we didn't really want to act like we didn't know that. So we honestly wanted to fight a block that we thought we were relatively on par with. And Rose seemed like the most fair option on the 1v1 level.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for that, Lucy. How did that go for you? Like the whole run up, were you guys pretty sure you guys were gonna get? I know you guys had a pretty awesome counter blitz the night of. What was going through your head that day as it kind of became more clear that maybe you guys are gonna get hit?
Well, we were indeed under the impression that it was possible we got hit. Turned out it indeed was Rose. So yeah, for me personally, it was kind of exciting in the beginning for me. First war to lead as Rose leader, so that's always something. Yeah. So to my head, it was mostly on that day. I wasn't really working on foreign affairs. It was just okay, how to counter this as effective as possible. And I would say, yeah, well, the war happened, so not much to say about it.
Sure. Okay. So for those of you who weren't involved in this, so George, Tarok, James, what was maybe going through your head as you saw this? What were your thoughts? Do you think it was a fair, balanced war, etc.? We'll start with James. What was going through your head when Rose got hit?
I believe my immediate thought was that's an insta loss for Rose simply due to Clock was just going to win the stats war because they had already had some of their info shaved, and that gave them an advantage right off the bat, from my opinion, and for most of ours over in Oasis at the time. You know, since we were piecing out of the war, we kind of figured that was where it was going, and I think we might, it was basically, it's just they turned around and went right at them right after our war ended, and was like, oh, maybe they just kind of used it to shave some info off before going after him.
Were you guys surprised that they came to the table so quickly for peace?
Yeah. That was definitely not expecting after the way things turned out and how we ended up fighting both them and Blackwater when they came to when they came, asking to end it after such a short period of time. It was a little surprising. And then when they turned around and hit Rose, it was like, oh, okay, that explains a lot.
Okay. Tarek, you have a somewhat interesting perspective on this, I think, because you guys were involved in the initial hit on Clock. Oh, not the Clock. Oasis and Mr. Ink. Were you guys a part of that very early decision to peace out? Were you surprised, or was that always the plan to peace out after a week?
I wouldn't, and I'm not sure how it went for upper government. I don't think it was the plan to peace out after a week. I can't say that. I think a lot of how the war would go would be dependent upon how stiff the resistance was and how long it was drawn out. And personally, for me at least, the war kind of didn't have much impact because I got my first 3 targets in the Blitz, and then for the rest of the war, I kind of couldn't find anyone else to fight, probably because I was busy for work. And so the day the war was pieced out, I had heard people talking about I heard people talk about the war was probably going to get pieced out. And it got pieced out, and I found out that at work, and about maybe, I forget what it was, maybe like 10, 15 minutes later, I got a text message from a friend who plays the game, and he texted me saying, hey, Clock just declared war, and then he didn't say on who. So it was a bit like, oh, was this a move on us or anything like that? And I logged in and saw that it was against Rose, and I mean, I don't know if Rose was expecting it. I heard some people say Rose was expecting a war with someone, but I thought pretty quickly on, like, I don't know who said it, but the stats war, I figured it was going to go that way, partly because Clock already had some of their infrastructure shaved off, but also because, as we know, the Blitz coming in is a really big advantage, and Clock coming in, I thought pretty quickly on, Rose isn't really going to have a chance in this, with all due respect. Clock is a pretty strong block. That's a tongue twister. And coming in with a Blitz against Rose, who I don't think was expecting it, I figured pretty early on Clock was going to have a pretty easy ride of it.
Fair. Okay. Decca, do you have any comments on that, or
Yeah. Oh yeah.
go for it, man.
So I do understand the ideology behind shaving infra, but that was never a discussion. At least not one that I was aware of, and given my position, I would have been part of that. There was never an intent to shave infra. There was actually never an intent to fight Oasis and Mystery. That was never the goal. That was never planned. That was a consequence of, honestly, of Oasis militarizing and the MDP. We never planned on that. It was initially just Cataclysm and Hand of Fate. And I don't know. I mean, I don't blame anyone for reacting. You know, when you see the MMR start going up, I don't blame anyone. But that is what escalated into what it became. That was never planned. It was going to be Cataclysm, Hand of Fate. Unfortunately, hitting Mystery as like a lighter, as like a lighter pre-holiday. Like, hey, we haven't been at war, you know, not with each other, but in general for a little while. We'll just have a light war, just to get that off our back. And happy Christmas. And but unfortunately, a lot of people responded to the militarization, and it blew up into what happened. But there was never an actual planned, like, hey, let's do this and shave infra and hit Rose. It was just gonna be Kata and Hand of Fate that would have had some of their infra shaved initially. But that wasn't even the intent either.
Anyone have any thoughts, comments?
Yeah, I said as an outside party, watching this from my throne on the Johnsons. So I thought, I get it. I get Oasis and Mystery Inc. signing that treaty. When you have the threat of Hand of Fate and Cataclysm staring down at you, it's kind of a spooky thought, right? It's kind of like I'm sure Hedge Money was trying to find a treaty with someone when they're up against us in Oblivious War, but I think looking at the performance, the war performance of Oasis and Mystery Inc., I think that was the potential beginning of the end of Oasis. I know they had been struggling before, or at least it appeared they had been struggling before, and so the move of that war, the result of that war, is kind of interesting to see how the puzzle pieces fell, right? Because TFP obviously we had the best war performance out of any alliance, and so we were able to sneak into the Johnsons through that great performance. But you look at where TI went, like the piece just started to fall.
Oh,
Whoa.
sorry.
I think
lost it.
all of Discord just took a shit.
Everything.
Dang.
Yeah, we just
Okay, yeah. I went down too. Okay.
I lost connection here for a bit, I think.
Is everybody back?
It was everyone. Yeah.
Yeah, I watched my
Wow.
ping go from 32 to 12,000.
That's wild.
Anybody
I just
hear
made the most.
When we say silence,
Next to
anybody hear that?
possibly EMPs in the game.
I just made the most OP political points ever and spoke the truth about how
Well,
good.
that's what you
No,
dropped.
we heard you.
Yeah.
We heard you. It cut off
I
like
heard
when you
that.
finished.
Not
I was
Discord
trying to
thought you
change
were too good.
topics and then it just died.
Yeah,
So-
no, I gave all sorts of insider secrets and stuff too, so it was
Okay.
weird. Just all of a sudden.
Well,
Discord
going
shut it down,
going
yes.
on, we're gonna move to the war itself, kind of away from some of the minutia. Lucy, I've heard it said by a couple people. I honestly didn't pay attention super closely to the war. That the alpha deletion was kind of the moment where the war shifted from somewhat competitive to over. Is that kind of how you saw it from Rosa's side?
Yes, definitely. Let me first start. I mean, I fully support and understand the decision that Alpha was banned. They were multi, so it was entirely fair game. However, it did indeed, well, kind of end the war from competitive to, militarily speaking, over. Yeah, that was indeed a turning point. I couldn't deny that.
And so at that point, do you guys just kind of make the decision to like shut it down, Turtle, or what's going through your mind? Because I know you at least were really heavily involved in Milcom, and I think you probably still are.
Former Malcolm had.
Yeah, what's going on in your mind when you're like, okay, the war's over? What does that look
Well,
like?
The tactics that you use change dramatically, I would say. I mean, instead of trying to destroy the enemy's planes and trying to get completely in top militarily speaking, you're switching to a tactic where you're trying to just damage the enemy without spending, well, too much of your own. So yeah, it becomes more of a battle to destroy infrastructure instead of going for military control.
Deca, from inside,
Yeah.
how did the war go for you guys? What trends did you see? Again, did you also notice that when Alpha went, that's kind of when it went? Just talk about the war from your perspective.
I first want to say that I was really glad that it wasn't toxic at all. It was like both wars were actually very nice and clean. There wasn't a lot of trash talking. And I said that a few times, and I do mean it. It was nice to have like just a nice, simple, clean war. And as far as with Rose, Mystery and Oasis and Blackwater and Clock, it was a nice, I wouldn't say like a warm up. I don't want to like disrespect them like that, but it was like that was Clock's first engagement with anyone. So like we sort of had like a good idea of what we needed to do going forward, especially regarding like beiging, sitting on people beige policies, and we did try to be more strict with that in regards to Rose. I will say that the upper tier, like our C30s and higher, they pretty much got hit with the bat pretty hard. And I don't know if the removal of alpha influenced that tier specifically, but in my mind, as the war was progressing, alpha being removed, in my opinion, didn't really do too much, only because of the like from where I'm at T25, they were just quite like they couldn't touch me to begin with, just tiering wise. Like just the difference in score ranges was so supreme that I wasn't worried ever about alpha, like in my regards, specifically me. It was basically like our 22s to 27s that had to like just sort of be sturdy until 2 or 3 days in, and just slowly start pulling people down off of our own C30s. And if you look at any kind of like progression charts, I think it does sort of show that. And I think it was like just a pretty efficient war, and I think that's one of the reasons why it led to an early peace. There wasn't really much more to gain from continuing it for a lot longer, in my opinion, at least.
Rockets be reinvited in.
You gotta
I
accept
invited
it,
you, buddy. Yeah.
my man. Okay.
Oh, there he is.
Welcome back.
Well, yeah.
The
It's like a
spine
long
was
lost
never gonna
family
be for us.
member.
There's
coming
no way the
home.
spine game would have been ours.
Took a second to show up.
The prodigal
man.
son has returned.
I locked myself out of my house a couple weeks ago. I know how that feels, man. It's tough.
I've been looking at the audience, and I tried to stop looking at the audience, and I hit hung up instead. That shows how technologically adept I am.
It happens to the best of us.
Excuse me, you locked yourself out of your own house?
Yeah.
Wow.
He heard you were there, James. So he's like, well.
I would lock myself out of my own house too.
It takes some talent, man. But I got back in.
Also, Turok, have you thought of joining Grumpy with those tech skills?
Yeah, you won't have to ever deal with bots ever again.
Yeah, last time I looked in the mirror, I'm not entirely gray yet, and I'm still friendly enough, I think, so give me about a year or two and I'll consider it. I still have some life left in my bones.
Anyone else have any comments, George, Tarok, Kev, James, on the war from an outsider's perspective before we move on to stuff that happened after the war?
Not really. I mean, for me, I completely predicted that's exactly what's going to happen. Pretty much from the moment they approached us with peace, I was like, "There's no way they're going to hit somebody else. Probably Rose."
Did someone give you logs for that too, George?
I didn't have logs for that one. That one was common sense to me.
I mean, I think it was a 50-50 that they were going to hit probably Rose or Hollywood.
I thought Hollywood at first, but for some reason I almost felt like they didn't want to go after a Hollywood uppers. I still think they would have lost that fight.
Yeah, from an outside perspective, like I said, I wasn't really sure. I had been working a lot that week, but I wasn't really sure who they were going to go. The second I heard they went for Rose, I kind of knew how it's going to go, and I didn't really keep a very close eye on it.
Now, personally, I wanted them to hit Blackwater.
Why do you think Clock going for Hollywood would be like just a certain loss?
Okay, certain would be probably the wrong term. I think it would have been more of an uphill battle, I guess would be the better wording. I just, from what I've seen, Grumpy and their upper tier fights extraordinarily efficiently. So I would have put the ball in Hollywood's court on that one.
Do you think the tiering has any part of that?
Oh, I'm
think-
sure. I don't know the exact tiering between you two. I'm sure I've looked at it like 3 million times by now, but I can't recall it from the top
I
of my
think
head.
a lot of people have recently.
Yeah, it's been on pretty much
Hey,
like
hey,
every.
we're not there yet. Okay, we'll get there.
Okay.
Yeah,
We'll
if it
get
came
there.
down to between Clock and
Uh,
Hollywood, I probably would give the edge to Hollywood. I think they're probably the strongest there is currently. But I mean,
Oh, with
just
TI for sure. Even
Yeah.
without it, though, I still
Oh
think.
yeah, I mean if you're
Yeah, well,
counting,
yeah, I was talking about the upper tier. But yeah, with TI's change, although I think that's going to be a point that's talked about later, I don't want to steal
Yeah,
that.
we're gonna get there.
I don't want to see
I
that
didn't
from
know that.
Wolf.
Sorry.
But I mean, in terms of the upper tier, watching Clark versus Rose, I know some people in Clark, and they were pretty confident in their chances, and with the exception of one or two people who really badly overextended themselves in the upper tier for Clark, I didn't really see many people have too much difficulty. So I thought it was going to be pretty easy, at least in the upper tier for in the above C40 range. I don't think Rose has anyone in the C40 range. Do they, Lucy? Besides maybe Oath? What's Oath at these days?
3 people.
41.
Okay, so they have. Yeah, I figured it was probably going to be a quick and easy war for Clock if they wanted it to be.
Oh, 42, I see. My bad. We have suit was 41, but yeah, we have 2 people on 40 plus.
Yeah,
Hey-
Terminus S alone has quite a bit there.
Hey, Lucy, who did you think performed well in your block, and who do you think underperformed? Who were you impressed by, and who were you disappointed by?
Good question.
Well, I would say I'm happy with all the help from our allies that we got. We had, yes, we lost the war in the end. It's hard to come back from getting blitzed always. We had won the spy war though. That was an interesting side note. So I would say we're happy with all of our different allies. Together with Rose in the Blitz, it seemed that Voodoo and Advanced Syndicalist Mechanics were hit the hardest together with us. And it seemed that in the initial phase, Polaris and Church of Adam were well not immediately hit that hard, so they were able to counter more for that reason because well obviously they weren't directly hit in the first round. So I would say I'm very glad and very happy with all the help from our allies that we got that way.
So who were you disappointed by?
Who says I was disappointed? I mean,
You love
if you,
everybody equally.
I mean, if I have to point out someone, it would have been the fact that Alpha got banned. So yeah, all gains from
Alpha
there
was the
were
biggest
Yeah, I was gonna
disappointment.
say you had a
destroyed.
softball question there.
Yeah, Alpha is the easy answer.
What?
Alpha is the easy answer. It's very disappointed that Alpha was multis.
Speaking of which,
Yeah.
like what you guys think about that when that happened? Because I know like Rose is kind of maybe thought that's been maybe the case in the past. I know you brought it up with Alex and stuff a couple times, and like with COA, like COA obviously knew some stuff, but like I don't know what was your guys' thoughts on how that all went down?
Oh well, I don't look personally. I've gotten into leadership not that long ago, so I had no idea. And if there were previous concerns from Rose, I'll take your word from it. I should ask the former leaders for that because I don't know. But the fact. Sorry.
I have a comment on that actually.
Okay.
Go for it.
I so just like uh Luce, I'm relatively new as well. And I always thought for the longest time that it was pretty weird that I never saw any alpha people talk in any of the new servers, no embassies, like nowhere. They were essentially, well, I say they, I mean, the 1 or 2 people.
He.
It was always
He might go by
very-
they.
Yeah, yeah, I guess. It was very like it caught my attention, but it was like mysterious in a way. And I started hearing rumors that they were multis, and it was this war against Rose where like I started looking into it with some other people, and you could see I don't know. It was plain as day, and I'm trying to emphasize that I was new to this stuff, so it's concerning that like I don't know how they made it this long, to be honest. Um, like, did no one here actually wonder like why they had no embassies? They didn't talk anywhere, and no Discord information on any of their pages. Like that wasn't a thought anywhere. Like they were all complete. They were all perfectly fine with funneling all their money into one person. Like no one noticed that for years.
I think they've stuck around the same grouping of people for so long that they probably just stopped questioning it. And you also need to realize Alex said that he believes they were real players at some point. So there is a chance that people met other alpha players. I don't know. I've never really communicated with alpha whatsoever.
Well, yeah. I mean, I wonder why that is.
Well, I mean,
Yeah, I
don't
mean, really,
know.
like big shocker. Like there is no one. I wish I had an alliance where 14 out of 16 members funnel all their money into my nation. Like I don't know how this made it this long.
I actually have a semi-smart ass response to that to answer your question, how nobody realized it. And this is the game where Guinea Pig Whaling Corps was allowed to exist for over a half a year of being exactly that.
They weren't multis.
They weren't multis, but they were. It was blatant rule breaking, and people have been taught. People have you've heard the people have heard the rumors about Alpha forever that it's half joking but half not, that it was just a giant multi farm. Things where people break the rules here, they don't get handled in a timely manner until it becomes a really big deal or overwhelming evidence is presented.
Weren't you? I guess if it was so evident, why didn't you speak up more about it back then?
No, what are you talking about? I said until overwhelming evidence is presented. I'm not looking into if people are multis. I don't care. Let them break the rules. They got caught. You always get caught when you break the rules.
I think one of the reasons might have been, and I'm not as old as some people on this show. I haven't been around as long, but in my experience, at least, I don't really remember. And obviously, it makes sense now looking at it as them as multis, but I don't really remember Alpha ever really putting themselves out there in terms of war or doing anything to attract attention. So I feel like it kind of got not really paid attention to because no one really looked close enough to notice it. It was just kind of accepted. Yeah, it's Alpha. Yeah, they don't really talk that much. Yeah, they don't really fight. They just kind of are there. Like what I was told by Sphinx, at least when I was in the Commonwealth and we were allied with Spanish Armada, was that all of the active members of Spanish Armada had either gone to Alpha or the majority of them had gone to Church of Adam years ago, which is why he explained, no, Alpha and Spanish Armada don't really do anything, although active members left. So, I mean, no one really noticed because there was nothing really to pay attention to. If people are looking at it hard enough, they'll see something, but no one looks at something that's not making noise or doing anything.
The best part is that the C65 guy, all of his cities were like mocking how easy it was to manipulate the economy in this game, and like it's so ironic because he didn't manipulate the economy; he just cheated. Like his cities were named like, I guess I'll just keep on going. It took me like a few months to like be questionable about it, so I don't know what your guys like excuses are really. An alliance that has that high tier of a player where like no one talks.
I would just say it's kind of Tarak said. They weren't causing noise. I didn't really care. To be honest.
I think
Dude,
like
my
did anyone
nation
here
page
actually
is
defend
so
them?
out of date, and there's T's that aren't crossed and I's that aren't dotted. Let alone me looking into that shit. Like, I appreciate whoever it was. Maybe was it Vane that sent the report? Like, I think that's cool that people go out and do that and have the ability to dive into that. But for me, I mean, I've heard rumors, but I just don't give a shit or have enough time to go and do that, and investigate it myself and have a finalized report for Alex to try and take to them. I think it's great that there are people that are, but I mean,
if you
I
were
just
up
think
against that, I think you'd be in a different perspective, to be honest.
no, I really wouldn't. Like, I really wouldn't. I play with what cards are on the table, and if I suspected, I don't know, test of being multis, like I'm not gonna fucking go through and look at their login time. That's just not me.
Well, when the deck of cards that you speak of is actually only 2 or 3 cards, and it's blatant, and it's one nation logging on, declaring, and then like literally like
I'm saying
clockwork.
for me and for a lot of people in the alliance, like most people
I'm still
don't
going.
fucking go and look through all
I'm
that.
still going. What I'm saying is like when they go like clockwork and it's every 3 or 4 minutes, and it's 14 nations all doing it like exactly the same motions, you don't think anything of that?
Yeah, but
You
what
would
was
think
just to
that
take
Oblivion,
a-
it's already
Oblivion does
produced
that.
for you.
what people are saying
Oblivion
though
are all
is that
bots.
what people that's a hot take. But what people are
It's
saying
all in
is
the
that
report, though.
It's sarcasm.
yeah,
I
I
know
know,
that
I
they're
know.
not.
If people paid attention and actually looked to see, hey, look, this is when they're all logging, they're all doing the same thing, it probably would have got noticed. And I imagine that I don't know how it got noticed, but it did. But like I said, and like George reiterated, no one cared to really try to look at this. They weren't doing anything to make it worth. No one gives a shit if Wampus is making 67, 68, 69 cities because all he's doing is making himself far out of the range of everyone else. And if the rest of the cities, if the public perspective was, man, the rest of the cities don't care about the game, they're just humoring this one guy, they don't matter anything. They're not involved politically, they're not involved militarily. No one cares to try to look close enough to notice something like that. It's like, hey, how often do you look at the login sheets of the 67th ranked alliance? You don't. There's no reason to. No one had any reason to try to investigate them up until the point came that they did something really obvious, like all make a city or two within like 3 seconds of each other. Then it kind of became clear, hey, they're multis. But up until that point, no one cared to look at them. How often do you look at the login times of other alliances?
So Alex resolved the banned them, right?
API, I don't know where you get bot nonsense from, but it's API.
I also
And
think
even
it
with
comes
data
down
mining or
to,
scraping, it's still factual. It's not like we type these in.
I think it comes down to it's Alex's game. He should have figured this out. It's not on players to do this. Like,
Well,
if you-
but
I mean, I
it
know
was on-
players
but-
did it, but
right.
it's his job. Like, he's getting money for this. Like,
I mean, but how do you get past VPN and so you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. That'd be pretty tough, especially for how little money compared to the resources you'd have to spend in order to figure that kind of stuff out. Like, I don't know, but how he resolved it though, like, is everyone satisfied with the resolution?
yeah.
The guy admitted to it. I mean, the guy admitted to it. He said he thought it was okay. So like, I don't understand what the controversy is.
That's a stupid opinion too. Not yours, his. Like,
Oh.
you fucking know better than to make multiple nations. You don't get to go through and do VPNs and think because they're different IP addresses that is same. That was the most retarded answer I think you could have said. I appreciate him admitting to it instead of saying no and making Alex work harder to try and uncover it. But like, everyone in this game that gets to that point where you've been here that long knows you cannot have multis. Don't fucking sit here and try and tell me you've got this excuse or different IP stuff. Like, dumb.
Well, I think I haven't really paid close enough attention because I'm fine with whatever punishment it is. It doesn't really matter to me. But from what I've heard, Alpha was a real alliance and people were involved in it up until Zig would probably know. He's an old bastard, well, formerly old bastard. I think they were a real alliance up until strategic arms limitation talk or whatever that was. That war was the Salt War, when they all basically entered vacation mode. What people are saying, what people said to me at least, was that was the point that people left, and only a few people came back, and they all gave their they all gave their log info to the one person who came back. I don't think they all came back. I don't think they were all multis from the start. That's why it wasn't really noticed to begin with. They were real people to begin with, and then they stopped at one point.
Yeah. Also, let's leave the alpha talk here for now. I think this is enough because we got other things we need to talk about. But if you want to keep talking about alpha, we can talk about it in the post show. But let's keep moving on because there are some other important things to talk about. I want to get into the oasis of it all, the TFP misclick canceling the treaty that then caused Immortals to start looking for somewhere else. Because I think that particular thing, one of the big 6 blocks going bye bye, I think has something that is going to affect the game just from a meta strategic sense going forward. So, James, you have a unique perspective because you are both in Oasis when this happened and then also ended up in Hollywood. Um, just what's going on in Oasis, maybe kind of after Velny leaves to go to actually I don't remember what happened. Did Way go to Rose first or Velny leave TFP first? I think it was Way going to Rose first, right? Yeah. So what
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So what happened post war, I guess, with Oasis?
there's no better way to put it than it was just basically an absolute clusterfuck. Uh, that's probably a great definition for that entire series of events. So spanning like a week, maybe 2 weeks. Way had told us I don't know however you want to pronounce their name.
It's what?
Way.
I'm not
Way.
calling them Wa. Okay, that's definitely not it. I always call them Way. But they told us during the war that they were planning to move on.
They were going to go their own way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Yeah. That's cheap pop, buddy. Cheap pop. They told us they were going to go their separate way. And then Velny left TFP, which came really out of the blue. And when he told Tyrion and myself that he was leaving, he told us some concerning information about about why he was leaving and the direction that the rest of TFP's government wanted to go. And the guy that replaced him was a guy that had been appointed to his deputy position like not even a month before, and that was his first ever job in a game like this or whatever. Really not an ideal situation for him to be put in for sure, getting tossed into the fire like that. And we were talking to him about, what we had heard and what their plans were. And they came back and they're like, yeah, we're going to sign all these people. And we're like, what do you mean you're going to? That's not how this works. You don't just, what's going on? What do you mean? They told us that Vel had said some things, and instead of talking to us about it, they just decided to, well, okay, we're just going to go do our own thing. And that started that chain of events.
Can
I
I
have a
ask
question
something?
if I could.
I feel like there are some emotional people running alliances in FA these days. And when people are taking an L, things get heated, people start blaming each other. I mean, even I'll say this, even I went back to people in Rose and said, where can we improve? And here's where some things that I saw. And I would expect people to do that to me as well. Hey, Voodoo did this, Voodoo did that, good or that bad. And I think most spheres probably have that, but I think some people take it way more personal than they should. So you don't think like there were arguments about the war, and then it just caused them to get all upset and take their ball and go home?
Well, it's funny you say that because some of the concerns that we had heard from Vel during his departure were how they wanted to proceed post-war and a lack of focus that they wanted to give to improving militarily, which we found very concerning. And then that was even before they even let us know about the highly questionable FA moves they were planning to pull off while still being in the Oasis. That was the other thing. They were trying to do this while still staying in Oasis, no less.
First of all, I don't appreciate you smack talking my alliance. Second of all, like it is TFP, and it wasn't part of the concern, and the reason why Valeni was making the backup plan because it's TFP, and so like when he left, I think what Vice is saying is like when he left, like why, instead of being met with like aggression, do you think it could have been handled a different way with TFP to help mitigate mistakes, or in this situation, a very good decision that they made by joining the Johnsons?
No, because there really was no communication. They basically did eventually just pick up their ball and go home and cut off all communication. You know, once we started calling them out on their crap and their complete unprofessionalism when it came to talking to their allies, they just kind of clammed up. Yes, big goal. They just kind of clammed up, and they've pulled themselves out of the block channel without saying anything. They never informed the rest of the block of their moves. We had to do that for them. And they did drop Federation without a word to them. And they didn't, as far as I know, they didn't go back to them afterwards and apologize for that little mishap either. That was very cool of them to do.
Speaking of dropping, I know what's his name, FA of that alliance. Who's the FA, Kev?
Eric.
Yeah, that's the one. Had said at one point that this series of bad internet and misclicking that led to the
okay. So
CI
do we really want to talk about the misclicks? Because
hold on, let me get this out.
I want to talk
before I
about
laugh a little bit.
That's the best argument I've ever heard.
The misclicks. He claimed that he went to you actually specifically and tried to remedy the situation, and he said it was met with hostility.
It absolutely was, because if you expect me to believe that was a misclick, like you're really going to give me the politician did a boo-boo on Twitter excuse for your screw-up?
I don't think anyone believed that except for them when they were trying to get their story straight, because I listened to that Thalmor episode and it just was like, oh yeah, this is the way it was, and oh yeah, and then like they would slip up and say, oh well, then I didn't even know that TFed was in there when they said that they had misclicked it earlier. So they like said that they misclicked it, and then they said, oh no, we didn't even know they were part of Oasis. Okay, so then why were you clicking them off? Like, it was just as it went on, you could tell they just got beat down and beat down and beat down, and Kev was throwing them a couple softballs to knock it out of the park, and they were just like, we failed.
They even blamed us. They said that we canceled on them. And then after it was like,
well, they also said it
there's a
expired before
log, buddy.
everything.
There's a physical log that says your name canceled it. So what now?
I'm pretty sure Hi Dude asked them if it was something way early on, and they're like, oh, it's just an expired treaty.
Hey, take it easy there, Oasis Baskin. So here's the thing is TFP said misclick, yes, but they didn't say that it wasn't an intentional misclick. Maybe it was an intentional misclick, and that's something that you guys are discounting, and I personally find it insulting. Thank you.
I get the legal definition of intentional misclick.
No. Next question. Thank you.
Next question? Okay. Well, I want to hear from some other people, because I feel like a few people have kind of I don't think we've heard from Lucy, Deco, or Tarok much on this. Oasis dying. What does that do to the game? Well, I guess we got to talk about Immortals first before we can talk about Oasis dying. So, Immortals lands in Hollywood. James, can you, just from not a Hollywood perspective, but from an Immortals perspective, explain what was going on through your head? Were there other people that were trying to vie for you? Why did you choose Hollywood if there were? Just what's going on in the Immortals world during all of this?
Really just a comfort fit. We've some tense moments aside, during wars, we've always had, a really strong, friendly relationship with TKR. We yeah, what? Be quiet over there. The TFP, TFP's sudden departure really put us in a bind, honestly. We weren't expecting to have to make such a decision so quickly, so rapidly. We knew when they left that Oasis really wasn't going to be viable anymore, especially in its current position. So really, it was a matter of comfort. We had other blocks approaching us, asking us to come in, but really, it was just we felt comfortable with TKR, and I think it made sense from an image perspective for us to go there for the best.
Hey, real quick, Turok, are you all right, buddy?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I didn't know if that was like you
I think
and
it was
like
Vice.
pain.
No, that was Vice.
Oh, okay. Vice, are you over at Valeni and is his daughter
I
jumping on
think
the dog
anyone
again?
would say that a number 2 alliance would make them feel comfortable, especially with the highest tier in the game. I mean, I would feel comfortable over in Hollywood, despite how much shit I gave them. But come on.
I will give them shit on their decision making.
on.
I think it was a solid decision.
We weren't planning on dropping TFP, but we did make a decision.
I did give Tyrion a lot of
minutes.
shit on. But real quick, Wilson, you're the head of FA, right?
Yeah.
Or did I say Tyrion? Wilson. Sorry.
You said Wilson.
So we just gave TFP a lot of shit for dropping their treaty pretty quote quote accidentally. Don't you find the time frame you guys did your whole treaty signing and ditching the rest of your allies as pretty much just as bad?
No, because we were conversing with them the entire time. From TFP was supposed to inform everybody of their pending move to Johnson block, whatever that pile of poo is called. But they didn't do that and just noped out. And we're like, okay, well, guys, so then we had to tell UPN and DB, and I personally had spoken to Federation to be like, hey, did you know you lost your ally? We'll pull you in here real quick to make sure nothing happens to you. But we spoke to them the entire time that was going on, and we cut our treaties with them with their blessing and their knowledge. Unlike TFP, who just kind of went, bye, adios, later, bitch.
Hey, did you get a different story from UPN and DB, your new alliance or allies, George?
I actually haven't really spoken too much on it. I just know from the date, I mean, it was like a day and a half, right? I believe from New Treaty, from Oasis to New Treaty.
Everything happened real quick. I mean, there wasn't much we could do about it. It was only over a couple days.
Well, I mean, real quick, James, I just like to point out your crap talking on TFP and the Johnsons. And here's the thing, buddy. Look who's alive, and it's the Johnsons, not Oasis Baskin. Oasis Baskin is gone. She is gone. Out of here.
Yeah. Tiger King.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you over the paparazzi in front of me, blocking my eardrums and shit.
The same paparazzi that you were complaining about 2 months ago.
Times change, my friend. Times change, and so do opinions.
They sure do. And with you guys, it's minute by minute.
Especially when they suit you really well.
I mean, I've kept quiet on this because I don't really have a super strong opinion on this. I will be the first to say there's a lot about this game I'm really not good at. Some have accused
Just
me of
take it,
being
say
bad.
Nick it. That's what I'm doing.
Yeah, some people have said I'm bad at everything, and some people in particular have accused me of certain things in econ, like not knowing the difference between a loan and a grant. But that's a different discussion. But I mean, one thing I do know at least is that it isn't the responsibility of one alliance or another to try to think what is in the best interest of everyone else. The responsibility, at least in my opinion, of a government is to do what's in the best interest of its own alliance and its own members. Because
Facts.
that's why your government, your job isn't to hold the hand of anyone else and say, well, we can help ourselves here, but it isn't good for this alliance. Your gov to help your own alliance. And although it might, I don't know, I can't say if I would have done it or not. I'm not in this situation. I don't have all the details. I would say I'm not going to kill Tyr. The Immortals for it. In fact, I'll congratulate Wilson and Tyrion. I've liked Tyrion for a while since he was in Pantheon. I think he's done well to make an alliance that's in the top 5 now, top 3, I think it is. I don't really look at the alliance page that often. So I mean, I have to give them credit because at the end, signing with a powerful bloc and defending your own alliance is what your job is. But I mean,
I agree with that logic, but it's also the same logic that makes you build Quack and get rolled for 3 months straight. So while I'm on your side, and I think yes.
Yeah, what I was gonna say there was like, yeah, it's your job to do what's in the best interest of your alliance, but and I am gonna be very clear here. I'm not speculating anything. I'm just going off of what Vice said. If down the line something happens, you can't then say, well, that's not fair to us. It's in the interest. Everyone has to do what's in their own interest. Nightfall happened and people got rolled there. NPO's last time happened that people got rolled there. Quack's last time, Duck Hunt happened, people got rolled there. You do what's in the best interest of your own alliance to defend your members, but there's also a balance between balancing the short-term benefits and the long-term benefits.
So, like you're saying, would you say that it's in their best interest to do something that they spoke out against just minutes beforehand? Wouldn't you say that would hurt their interest later on for people trusting what they say and having faith in their position and not thinking that their position is just purely Oasis basket spin?
I mean, I don't really get the. We very much. I will point out again. I don't head TS's FA. That's still wanna. I can say, thinking about it, if I had to give an answer, I will actually say I wouldn't have done it because, like you said, it did kind of go against things you've said in the past, and it does put you up for risk for being able to trust. But I mean, if you think it's worth it in the short term, I said I don't head TSFA. I'm second in command, Justinian. Back off. I read chat, motherfucker. I wouldn't do it because, I mean, in this game, one of the biggest things in FA is you have to be able to trust what other people say. If you don't have faith in someone as FA, it's difficult to trust them to sign a treaty. It's difficult to want them as an ally. But I mean, TI did manage to get itself into the most powerful block. I think Hollywood was probably one or two strong. Was probably the strongest block beforehand. I think TI makes them stronger. So I think in the short term, it's definitely a good sign. It gives both sides benefit. TI gets support in the upper tier. Hollywood gets support in the lower tier. I can see the benefit for it. I don't think I would have personally done it though, considering it does put a lot of attention on you and it does go against things that were said in the past. Your word is your reputation in FA.
But also at the same time, I do agree with James Wilson that things do change. Like, my opinion on certain alliances today are very different than they were when Hollywood was formed, which is very different than they were when we first did our initial Morph Radio. So I do agree with you, but at some point you have to allow people to change their opinions. I mean, people were giving um, cam members and Polaris members shit for things that happened years ago, and I understand it was horrible and it was like awful when a lot of people lost a lot of friends. And but at some point you have to allow them the opportunity to realize that opinions can change. So I do agree with you that you need to make sure people don't turn around on a dime, which does happen, but like, I'm sitting here and I'm gonna call people out when they're like, well, we've been playing chess the last 6 months and it was just like a really natural fit for TI to join Hollywood. Like, fuck off with that. That's not right. You joined because it makes sense from numbers, it's protective, like they are great people over in Hollywood. So of course you're gonna get along with them, but like that move, unless there's something on down the road that we don't know about, everyone can see through the fog as to why that move was there. So, like, we get it, we understand, but you can just be straight up.
Again, the move happened, in 3 days. It was very rapid decision making going on. So, yeah, I can understand you having your opinion on that, but we didn't have very many options, and we thought it was the best option available to us.
James, can I ask, and it doesn't particularly make much of a difference to me, I'm just curious if you can say, did the Immortals approach Hollywood, or did Hollywood approach the Immortals? I don't know if you answered that already, but I'm just curious.
I didn't answer that. I don't actually knew which way it was because we
The
didn't.
person who did the initial talk, Tyrion DM'd me, so I was in the room. Tyrion DM'd me, so that was how it went.
But I also don't think it matters that much because if Tyrion was doing his job, it would be smart of him to put out feelers. Like if there's him making contingency plans, he should absolutely do that. Hey, what does this look like if we're here? Would you even do it? And then he probably should have, hey, this is us in Rose, this is us in Mystery, this is us in Blackwater, this is us in Clock, and like they should have evaluated everything and then obviously made their decision. Clearly they only had 3 days to do it, but like I don't think who reached out to who. Well, I get I can see your point if it came the other way, if it came from TKR, but it coming from Tyrion makes sense, and like I wouldn't blame him. If I was in his shoes, I would have put out the feeler as well.
Yeah, that's just speaking from a Hollywood perspective, since James wasn't in Hollywood during the conversation. Yeah, for us, especially TKR specifically, um, there are some people in Immortals that, maybe in public we haven't got along with as well, but for the most part, we get along with Immortals really well. We get along. Tyrion and I and Weisel have a really great relationship, and we had been talking, um, trying to build relationships ever since I've taken over. TKR has really tried to put a full court press on a lot of people, just to improve relationships. I think most people in here, at least a lot of you guys, have me in your DMs pretty often. And so it was a pretty natural fit for us because one of the areas for Hollywood that has been a concern for us, and specifically some of our other allies in Hollywood that are not Grumpy or Guardian, is our upper tier does fine, but our lower tiers just die. And we care about our lower tiers a little bit. We don't want them to just die. And so we were looking at options. And then Immortals came to us, and it just seemed like kind of a natural fit for us. We like them. They help us in areas where we weren't trying to grow in. Like we could have gone out and got more upper tier. There was options for us to go get more upper tier. We didn't do that. We knew that would be dumb.
See, if Lefty was there, he'd be growing you guys internally.
I mean, we're still trying to grow internally, but we saw some some lower tiers.
That's never
We saw lower mid tier immortals, so it just seemed like a natural fit to us. So we brought it to Grumpy and Guardian and Oblivion and BK, and we talked about it, and it just seemed like a good fit. So we did it. It did move quick, but it just
How do you
Yeah.
grow
I
lower
and
tier
and
internally?
I like that Keygoz said something like, when you build your sphere heavily one-sided, it's okay to have a dynamic like that. I mean, Tyrion spent how long in Oasis as like between him and even Dravanya was still like 4 or 5 cities behind him. We basically knew if TFP or Oasis was gonna ever warn anyone over like C25 was gonna get absolutely slaughtered. Like they knew being in that sphere, like there wasn't a whole lot of that upper tier protection, and they were fine for it. Like they understood it, and Lefty knew that when they were in HM, that like their low tiers were gonna get murdered, and so the way to fix it is either to boost the shit out of the low guys and get them out of there, let them know that eventually they'll get into a tier where it's gonna be safer, or in Tyrion's case, like you're fine leading a large like sphere where it's mostly low tier with the hope that it stays together and grows up together, and obviously can tier up, which I think TI has done a great job this year in general of tiering up. If anyone's looked at them recently, they've really done a good job. But yeah, I don't think like you have to be covered in every tier.
I want to just ask a question that was mentioned of something that was mentioned earlier. Someone talked about growing a low tier internally. How does one really? I'm just curious.
Recruit,
Okay.
That was a joke.
Okay, that's been throwing me. I'm like, man, I'm gonna have to figure that out. I need to learn how to grow it.
When Hollywood was formed and hit Rose, there was a big, I think it was that episode, there was a big argument about, oh no, it was when Cam, I'm sorry, it was when Cam was signed into Oasis. That's what it was.
Temporarily.
Holy shit, I almost messed it up. So when Oasis brought in Cam, they cut what is now the Johnsons.
Was that when you were there, George?
And Lefty nailed Oasis for not growing
hard
internally.
In the paint that episode on Oasis, telling them that they should have just been working with those alliances they cut to help them get better and grow internally. He basically said grow internally rather than just signing Cam and doing what was easy. Now, he wasn't wrong, and I agree with that. But what a lot of people didn't know is the Cam signing was always supposed to be temporary. So,
well,
again, you can't blame people for not knowing that.
Sure. Yeah, it was a great meme. It was a great moment.
It was a great episode, and that line will live on forever.
And I mean, we understand. Like I know personally, we understand that when you are an upper tier alliance, that you do have holes in the mid tier. But for us, it strategically made sense because we were hearing pretty convincingly from other people that Rose was also in active engagement to sign Immortals, and that would have put us just even low. Like we were somewhat equal in size with Rose at the time, and then so we would be significantly smaller than Blackwater, significantly smaller than Clock, and we would have been significantly smaller than Rose at the time. So for us, it almost kind of went into, if we don't do this, will we be able to 1v1 anyone except in the Grumpy tier? Because for us, if you win the Grumpy tier and you lose everything else, did you really win the war? Not particularly, no.
In the case of Guns N' Roses, you did.
But we won way more than Grumpy tier. We were able to win all the way down to,
what was it? You had everything like 25 and up.
5 or something, even lower, maybe 20.
I would agree with that.
But it was getting to a point where it was looking like we weren't going to be able to win. Like if we because during that whole the clock was going at Oasis and then clock went at Rose, there was thoughts that just internally that Blackwater might come at us or clock might come at us, and we were just looking at the numbers, and it was really hard for us to find a scenario where we thought we'd win, like if Blackwater hit us, just because of the numeric thing, except above a certain level, and we were worried about. Someone said that we would win easily against Clock. We wouldn't win easily against Clock. It would be pretty tough because Clock is really tough. So it was a very strategic balance for us.
You truly believe that?
Before we signed Immortals, I truly think you guys could take us. If you had blitz advantage on us, you would. Blitz advantage is a big deal there, right? I think we all acknowledge blitz advantage is a huge deal, right?
Clock's was smaller than you before TI. I'm pretty sure that Clock
was number wise before TI.
I'm surprised.
Besides the Spears, like Blackwater, Hollywood, Clock, Rose, Oasis was somewhere in there, but again, the tiering is way off. And then Mystery and Johnson's were, somewhere towards the bottom.
Yeah, but Clock was bigger than us numbers wise before we signed.
I don't think they were.
They were.
Can someone Decagon?
Yeah. Here's a question: do you think you could beat Clock without the Immortals? Like before.
If we blitz you.
Yeah.
If you blitzed us.
So with the Immortals, what would you call that then?
Huh?
Yeah. I said, if you could beat us without the Immortals, then what would it be called if you now have them?
Well, we feel like we would, if you hit us, we'd probably be able to win.
But without the Immortals, you don't think that?
Again, I think you could beat us without the Immortals.
Really?
Yes. You guys have your entire block is predicated on having really great fighters. Like that's how you built the block.
Yeah, but 22 didn't really go above 30.
It's not just
no one in this show is going to say that anyone but Hollywood has like the highest upper tier.
I know, but there's more to winning than just winning the grumpy tier. It is more than that. Like again, if you lose everything above C40, did you really win the war? No.
Guns N' Roses. I mean, is that
again Guns N' Roses? It wasn't like that. Guns N' Roses, it was.
You're right.
Above C25.
You're right. It wasn't the same because Guns N' Roses was multiple people against Hollywood, where it's just Clock. So you're right. It's definitely not the same.
Yeah, and Guns N' Roses.
Hollywood's definitely not the same sphere they were back in Guns N' Roses.
We're also not as big as we were during Guns N' Roses. We lost Cataclysm. We lost Air 404. No, Children of Light in Air 404, which is now Cataclysm, right? So you guys have a pretty high mid and upper.
We were sort of strung along in Hollywood, to be honest. Like I was Air 404, so like, yeah, we were like the low tier alliance in that block. We had I think we had like a C25 is like our highest, as like Rebel or Base Bond.
I'm sorry, I got a DM. I was reading it. Okay.
I think, and I'm certainly not Milcom, I'm just an FA person. I think it is one thing that people can agree on is that, God, I can hear my own voice more if I'm begging you. I think the blitz advantage in any war is a big deal. One thing that did happen in Guns N' Roses is that, for whatever reason, Rose... You know what? I'll agree with that, Kills Bob. Rose was not properly prepared for war. I don't think you can point to how Hollywood performed in Guns N' Roses and say, see, look, you can beat any block easily. Rose wasn't fully prepared for that war, and things have changed since then. I don't really agree with attacking Hollywood or any block really based on how they performed in a war where an opponent by their own fault, wasn't prepared, and multiple blocks have changed since then.
Yeah.
Trying to go back however many months it is now, and multiple multiple political moves since then. I feel like that's kind of an argument not in great faith. Things have changed since.
Rose was milled.
No, Rose was not milled. Rose was like 3/4.
Yeah, Rose was like
Good guy.
60% mill when they got hit.
Yeah, come on, don't come in here and spin like that.
Okay, so
That was literally a major
It
point.
was Oasis, to no offense to Oasis, most of them were poo, and then only 2 parts of Mystery Inc. came in a day late. Like,
Yep, if you want to talk about spinning,
I
the
think they
real
were like
spin is
2
that
days late, weren't
Hollywood
they?
turned off
But yeah.
button that
they
clock.
were 2 days late.
Real
Like,
spin.
again, it was a big war, like numbers wise, but it's not like Hollywood is this amazing miracle machine because we won.
Exactly.
a
They
war
weren't
6 months ago.
5001. They were
It's
on
not like-
553, but they started 3 days like after everyone else. So
Yeah,
they
we
had 553, but they only had like 60% units.
I
yeah,
don't think
we
anyone
won
needs.
that war because it was a mess. Rose, for whatever reason, did not mill. That allowed us to mostly take them down. Oasis made the weird choice to come in and only hit Children of the Light and Era 404 and some of Guardian, but didn't hit TKR or BK. So then we could counter them or just stay alive and finish off Rose. And then Mystery Inc. should have came in, but didn't come in. It was a really weird war.
I mean, there was, and if anyone
It
wants
was a
to go
stupid
back,
fucking war.
if anyone wants to go back and look at it and see people's takes at the time, Morf Radio, literally, I was listening to the show. There was literally a show going on, and you can hear in the war when people attacked. It was actually Zig was the
Dude,
one who
cannon.
said, "Hey, Oasis is joining right now." You can literally hear people talk about the war happening back then.
I remember that because I went and took a quick dump in the middle of the show, and I came back. I was like, "Holy fuck, Oasis is getting involved!" Like I totally missed it
It was
in a span of like 3 or 4 minutes.
It's my favorite. I think it's my favorite of any Morph shows because it was winding down, and you hear Morph talking and stop talking mid-sentence and just go, "Oh shit, oh shit," and Zig go, "Hey, you want? I think we have something new to talk about."
Yeah,
The
that was we planned a Blitz show and then we blitzed.
Dude,
and
that
we got
show
blitzed,
is
and
so long. That show is so long. That was almost 4 hours.
Yeah,
it was a
I,
great
I can
game.
comment on that. So
And
far,
then James came in halfway through. Oh, it was a great show.
Dude, that's the thing, Kinker. They didn't even attack during DC. They attacked like
oh, it was like
a
2 or
turn
3 hours.
change after, I
Yeah,
think.
it was way.
yeah, they waited for the next turn.
'Cause
So,
we
but
hit-
Yeah, I don't
we
poop in
blitzed the
DC
turn
ever.
change.
that was stupid. So originally it was supposed to be Oasis and Camelot, Weebinism, Aurora entering at the same time. For some reason, we got told, the mystery part got told to wait a day. We were ready to go in the same day. In fact, it's funny because we get so much shit for being the ones after Oasis. We were probably the first ones to agree to go in, but they said have Oasis go in first, and it was our impression they were going to hit everybody, including TKR. So the next day, we're getting ready to go in. I messaged somebody in TI. I'm like, why the hell are you guys not hitting TKR? And I got some response like, we told them we weren't going to hit them, so we didn't ruin our relations or something like that.
Yeah, I mean there was some FA going on in that, but it was just a mess of a coordination. Like, there's no reason Hollywood should have won as much of that war as they did, except for the fact that Rose didn't mill, Oasis did
Did
its
mill.
weird thing, and then Miss Inc. came in too late to really turn
They
it
did
around.
mill. Look in chat. There's a graph. Like they were higher. They had a higher strength than clocks. I don't know where you guys pulled this from.
What is
What?
this?
Where do you guys get?
Can you explain this a little bit more?
What am I looking at
It's
here?
a graph, and there are colors. Blue is clock, and red is rose. Which one's higher? Like,
We're not talking about Clock and Rose. We're talking about
because I wasn't done talking about that. Like, you want to talk about spin? Like, I'm spinning something. Like, you can just look at it, like, and see the numbers. I don't really see where the spin is. It makes your eyes
talking
hurt.
about?
It's two graphs. Like, I don't know what's confusing about this.
But what's the
I
graph?
don't. We're not confused by the graph. We're confused by where it's coming out of, like in relation to the conversation.
Is your graph
The
about
conver-
clock
like
versus
I
rows?
did. I was trying to answer something, and you guys just moved on, and I wasn't done. So that's how that works.
Is your graph about clock versus rows?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, we're talking about Guns N' Roses.
I know that, and I'm like adding on. We're talking about militarization.
Yeah, but Rose was militarized during the Clock versus Rose, but Rose wasn't militarized during Guns N' Roses. Clock didn't exist during Guns N' Roses.
I'm aware. I was in error.
I know. I'm just saying, like, Clock Rose was not militarized during Guns N' Roses. It was 60%. Lucy's here. Lucy's a Milcom guy. Were you guys fully milled up for Guns N' Roses?
We weren't.
Yeah.
Believe me, everyone who was around at the time remembers that Rose wasn't milled up. It was mentioned everywhere. You couldn't go in the forums without someone talking about it.
Yeah, I'm sure Lucy would wish to forget that. And honestly, Guns N' Roses is so long ago now that it's, the game is in a drastically different place.
Yeah, we're 2 weeks into January, and Guns N' Roses was back in May. So I mean, quite a bit has changed. Multiple blocks have formed. Bringing this up and talk about it now doesn't really seem to be relevant on anything. And I imagine Morph has other things to get the show into than talking about a 5-month-old war.
Yeah, because we were just in the middle of talking about Ti joining Hollywood.
Yeah. Which I get it. Ti joining Hollywood makes us large. Like it's a big thing, and I'm sure people have thoughts. So let's talk about it. We'll start with Tarok. Sure, I'll pull a name out of the hat. Tarok, how do you feel about it?
About Ti signing
Hollywood.
Oh, I thought I already gave my answer to this.
No, that was like an hour ago. I don't know.
Oh, yeah. I mean, to reiterate with it, I don't really have an issue with it. I don't blame for it. It wouldn't. I don't think it'd be something I would have done for. I don't know if I don't think it would have been something I would have done. But I mean, I am going off of a very small amount of knowledge based on the situation. But like I said at the time, Morph, please don't make me listen to my own voice.
I'm listening to it, man.
No, don't do it. I don't blame either side for it. Vex, I can do a lot of things. I can see why both sides did it. The Immortals got benefit in the upper tier. They signed. The biggest weakness Immortals had was that they didn't have a very strong presence in the upper tier, and as has been mentioned by plenty of people, a major issue Hollywood was having was that they didn't have a ton of support in the lower tier. And when both sides had a need, both sides had an opportunity, and like James said, it happened pretty quickly. And there's always time to think about it and talk about it after it happens. But in the moment, when you don't know, and I wasn't privy to anything of this, I imagine there were multiple blocks trying to sign the Immortals because they are a top ranked alliance, and it's an attractive idea to have that sort of strength in the lower tier to help things out. I don't blame Hollywood for making a move that they thought benefited them, and I don't blame the Immortals
I
for.
think Ti is a little bigger than you're giving them credit for.
No, I know.
don't know
They're
the
like,
last time you went and looked at their member size, but like their
Yeah, I
city tiering, but they're a little bigger than they used to be.
listen, I'll forever remember TI as what they were when Tyrion first messaged me when it first formed and was like, "Hey, you'll always have a spot here if you want." I'll forever remember them as that little kid. But I mean, I can see the benefit for both sides, and I'm not gonna take anyone's head off for people doing what they think is in the best interest of their own alliance. I mean, and I'm not gonna be someone who goes around saying, "Man, Hollywood's trying to kill the game." I've seen plenty of people saying that. I've seen plenty of people saying people need to team up against them. I don't think this is, and I might be in the minority here, I don't think this is the sort of thing that's terrible for the game. People did what's in the best interest of their own life. That's what they've always done. The game's gonna keep going.
It's just like the whole age of hot and ice age type thing. The game cycles back and forth. I haven't been here that long, but I can already tell, like, you can see it happening on like an annual basis, obviously taking out the shenanigans from NPO, but you had people breaking off, things shuffling up, Quack broke up. A lot of people were trying to basically pay attention to size, and now we ended up in this game where and not to be rude to certain spheres, but not everyone plays the same game. There are 3 or 4 spheres that play one game, and then everyone else is doing whatever they do. And so it's even as like Rose, which was one of the smaller spheres, before Oasis died, it still would have felt like picking on someone to hit half the spheres in the game. And it's just stupid for them to even exist. Like, I was all on the mini sphere train when I was in TFP. I thought it would be cool and more dynamic to have the smaller spheres, and I still think it would be. But there's obviously a lot of issues that come along with that in terms of people start teaming up, secret treaties, whatever you want to call it. There's a whole bunch of just peripheral issues with those smaller spheres. We can see people are bulking up now, and you have like TI going there. You're just gonna see spheres start to bulk up, and I think that, like, I don't know what is gonna happen to the Johnsons. I don't know what's gonna happen to Mystery, but like right now, if Rose were to tell me that we're gonna hit Mystery, I would be genuinely concerned for their well-being in terms of how long they would last. I feel like we would see the same thing that happened to Oasis or whatever it may be, or Swamp or whatever. So I'm fine with mini spheres if the competency and the overall size is relatively even, and you don't end up with these, what's not the ugly duckling, but the whatever, you know what I mean? Like, you don't end up with these spheres which are completely irrelevant, and then we as like Rose or whoever it may be can't even hit them, because if we do, we look like assholes because now we're picking on the sphere that's basically irrelevant. And then, like, they're not even involved. They're there, they exist, but like you can't do anything with them. They just are for um a temporary holding place for alliances to move back and forth. So you see this transition where spheres are starting to bulk up. I think it's fine that TI has gone to Hollywood. I would advise them to be very careful to add anything onto that. I think Blackwater is doing the same thing, like where they are fairly happy with their size. Maybe they even want to trim down a little bit to be more in line with Hollywood. I think you'll see Clock pick up. Well, they just picked up IKEA. They'll probably look and see what they look like tiering wise before they add on another alliance. I think if I had my way, I'd bulk up Rose a little bit. Um, so I just want it to be, a point where people can do those 1v1s and you don't have to group up to make a hit. Now, if you really want to fucking lay someone out, let's group up and lay some people out, right? But I want there to be an option to 1v1 someone for everyone. And I want everyone to be on the table to get hit. So I like that TFP is now in Johnson's because they're a top 5 sized alliance, and I want someone to be able to hit them and it not be, oh, you're picking on the Johnsons. They've got Cam, which has a lot of experience. They have TFP now. I want them to be on the table. I want Mystery to be on the table, whatever it takes to get them there. So that's my thing.
Just really quickly, I don't think we'll. This is just my own opinion for the 3.5 years I think it's been in the game. I don't think we're ever really gonna get a situation where there are a bunch of mini spheres. I just don't think it's possible that or if we do get a bunch of minispheres, I think it's going to be a situation where you get a couple and that are competent, and then everyone else, they're just enough competent alliances that are good to form a bunch of different minispheres without some of them being left behind. Like, I think TKO for the longest time was a very outspoken proponent of having minispheres. But I mean, you give the chance, and I'm not calling TKO or anyone a liar here, but like TKO was talking about minispheres, and then you have the chance to add on the immortals to benefit themselves. And while it is nice to talk about having a minisphere, you have the chance to suit yourself, to pad yourself there and give yourself some added security. No matter how much you talk about minispheres, there, that's kind of go out the. That's kind of gonna go out the window because hey, we can do what we said and get a minisphere, or we can now boost ourselves a bit more by adding on of one of the top two alliances. So I mean,
Well, I do want to point out that I think people need to remember that alliances of people, and people are the people that, sorry, people are the ones that pick out certain positions, certain topics, right? Like leaders changed. And I don't know, I don't remember when TKR was pushing minispheres really hard, but it wasn't when I was around. Like I haven't been here when TKR was really touting minispheres. Ever since I've been here, we've been talking about multipolarity, where there's multiple spheres, but they're
And when
not
I said
necessarily
minispheres, that's what I meant. I want more than like 3 or 4 spheres where they're all relatively the same. That
Yeah.
when I'm saying minispheres, that's what I mean. Sorry, and I'm
Yeah,
glad you specified.
I'm just going with Tarok saying the TKR was pushing minispheres. I think that was back in when we were doing that. That was Soup Kitchen, like when we were allied with Soup Kitchen and Chaos Block. That's the word I'm looking for, right? Like it's been a while. That was before MPO's last time. So like it's kind of what you said. Things changed, especially several years ago. So we are over an hour and a half. So anyone have any closing thoughts so we can end the recording, and we can keep talking, but we should at least end the recording so people
Predictions.
can.
We need
Okay, yeah.
predictions.
Predictions for the
Let's
next
end it on predictions.
month,
What was
next month. Predictions for the next month. We'll start with George.
Great. All right, my prediction is TFP is going to roll. I don't know. We'll start with Blackwater, and then they're gonna force Blackwater to hit Rose, and then they're gonna all team up and go after Hollywood.
Bold. That's bold. All right. Deca, what's your predictions?
Early spring, Blackwater, Hollywood, Blackwater blitzing.
Okay. Blackwater gonna blitz Hollywood. Okay. Lucy, what's your predictions for the next month or two?
Honestly, for the next month, I don't really see any war breaking out as of right now. Yeah, a bit lame, but yeah.
Any moves? Any moves? Any changes?
Let's see what's gonna happen. Well, a war doesn't break out. I might see militarization at the end of next month or later. Too early to tell, honestly.
Okay. The James, predictions for the next month or two.
I'm going to go with Johnson's gets rolled or mass raided on some scale, and TFP crumbles like a wet paper towel. And I'm also going to go with, I think we'll see a little offshoot from Mystery with all those new alliances added in from the old Oasis.
Okay. Tarok, predictions.
I mean, my prediction is that regardless of the fact that a bunch of people for some reason keep predicting that Blackwater for some reason is gonna attack Hollywood, seems like a hot take prediction to me. My prediction is that I think we will see one war or another in the spring, simply because it will be a while. But my prediction is that at least for Blackwater, we're gonna keep doing what we've always done: defend our own interest, pursue our own politics, and try to pursue a game that's fun and worth playing for everyone. And I think we
Well,
will
it's
see.
working because your infra is starting to grow white hairs on it. So
Yeah.
if I were you, I wouldn't change a thing. You guys haven't been rolled in a year.
I think several people think that.
All right. Vice, predictions, Mr. Co-host.
When was the last time Deck? When were you voted?
Who?
Was that Decagon speaking about TS getting road? Don't go
That was
throwing.
Vice.
That was Vice.
Oh, Vice. I don't know who anyone's voice is.
Yeah, but I mean, I can answer on my behalf if you want.
Zig, don't antagonize us. No, I'm just gonna say. No, I don't. I'm just amused by everyone coming out with hot takes of Blackwater rolling people, Blackwater attacking people. Seems everyone wants to see Blackwater do something.
That's not what I said. That's not what I, meaning Vice, said. I just was saying that you guys have been in wars in 2021, but you've been on the giving end the entire time. So when you said you guys are just going to do what's best for you, I was just saying don't change it because your infra is growing white hairs on it. It's so old.
All right.
As for me, predictions, I don't know. I hope Mystery and Johnson's stay beefed up, get beefed up. I hope to see Rose grow a little bit. I hope to see Clock actually. Maybe I haven't seen the numbers in a while, but I'd like to see them snag another alliance. That way they're on par with Blackwater and Hollywood. I'd like to see Rose get there. If we have to have 4 main spheres, that's fine. I'd rather there be 5. So let's just have Mystery give Clock an alliance, give 1 to Rose, and the rest go to the Johnsons, and then everyone can fight everyone, and it's fine.
Interesting. All right. Well, let us go ahead and cut the show. Thanks for coming, everybody. This has been an awesome time here at Morf Radio. And stick around for the post show. And we're done.